everyone. Can you hear me? Wave your hands out there. This is James Colburn with John L. Scott Facebook Friday, and another great episode of with a top thought leader out in our industry, in the real estate industry. John L. Scott is a third generation owned company. Lennox Scott is actually on the call today. He was recently ranked number 25 in the Swanepoel 2020 Power 200 as one of the most powerful and most influential leaders in the residential real estate brokerage industry. John L. Scott was founded just under 90 years ago and is located on the West Coast in California, Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. Emphasis on California because we're expanding into California. We have 110 franchise and company-owned offices and ranked the 15th largest franchise brokerage in the country. Our franchise owners, agents, brokers, and all collectively circle around our company's leading core value, which is living life as a contribution. So Facebook Friday is our opportunity to hear from outstanding thought leaders, both in and outside of the real estate industry, who exemplify excellence in business, contribution to others, and innovation. And this week, we have the distinct pleasure of having Richard Robbins from Richard Robbins International join our call. He's an international speaker, author, business coach of Richard's organization, and is delighted to share the most advanced real estate business building systems with the world, armed with one goal, which is to help real estate agents build a business and a life they love. Doesn't that sound good? So Richard is the co-founder and CEO of one of North America's top real estate training and coaching organizations, Richard Robbins International, which has over 10,000 coaching grads and 300,000 people gather yearly, unless it's COVID, for their conference. Welcome, Richard. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's just a pleasure to have you. I want to provide some quick context here that coaching is just so essential for real estate professionals or business or entrepreneurs out there. And I know for me, hiring a business coach at some point to kind of help me get further out of my way and get clarity around what I do and how I do it was just a huge moment for my business. And so having Richard come on with all of his experience in working with real estate professionals is just it's just a joy to have you, Richard. Thank you for joining us.
James, thank you. You know, it's my pleasure to be here, and it's good to see Lennox. How you doing? Here as well. So thank you everybody for having me. I'm actually standing in Toronto right now. I was just talking to James about it, and I sort of split my time between Toronto and Florida. Obviously, this time of year, I'm in Toronto, and then during the colder months, I'm down in Florida. And we're hoping to get down there, in October. Again, borders being closed, all a little bit weird right now. So anyway, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm very quickly going to give everybody an overview because I think I've got a fairly new audience here, and I'm sure most of the people are maybe familiar with me. I actually started selling real estate when I was 24 years old in a small town, about 65,000 people, about 90 minutes northeast of Toronto. I sold for 3 years before I decided to move to Toronto, or actually where I am right now. I still live in the same community. And that was when I was 27 years old. And I opened a real estate company, and I can tell you the crazy stories for the first 2 or 3 years about borrowing on MasterCard to pay Visa and borrowing on Visa to pay MasterCard to keep everything going. And it was a real challenge. But anyway, we figured some things out, and we started to train and coach our agents. And within 8 years after that, we had actually the highest production per agent of any company in the trading area. We were doing very, very well. And at that time, I thought to myself, imagine that if I could not only do this with my office, but maybe I could have some teachings that were valuable to the industry as a whole. And I sold the company to actually a very large company locally here, a large franchise. I won't say who it is, but a large franchise locally. And I started Richard Robbins International. And that was actually 21 years ago. It's hard to believe it was that long ago. And I just started, the whole company with the intention of really helping people build a business that fully supports the life that they want to live. And again, I sort of learned that through my own mistakes. My own mistakes was working way too much, just trying to run faster and faster and faster every day. So I think you'll see in this talk, I'm not going to talk a lot about, do we need to necessarily work harder, but how can we produce better results and make sure that every day we're going to work producing great results so that we're making the money, but not only allowing us the time to sort of live the lives that we want to live. And that's what our whole coaching company is about. That's what we do from start to finish. So we're a very whole life company. We're not just about making more money. We're trying to, I've created something like global happiness rating. It's how do we increase our global happiness rating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here because I have lots of great slides for you all. There we go. Whoops, that's not good because we're not supposed to be there yet. So I got to go back here on that one. Okay, there we go. There we go. So I'm out at the start rather than at the end. So here's what my goal is. I want to talk to you today because I know how valuable your time is. And I was actually just joking with James and some other people that this is a long weekend here in Canada and it's 2 o'clock. I'm on Eastern time. So this is Friday at 2 o'clock and a long weekend. My whole office is gone because they're all gone home. We gave them the weekend off and I'm still working. So it's quite a joke with everybody at the office. They go, hey, finally Rich is working and we're not. That doesn't happen very often. But anyway, it's great to be here. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the 2 freedoms that I think all of us are trying to achieve. I want to take you through the 4 phases that I see most agents go through. If you include teams, there's actually 6 phases, but we're just going to talk about the 4 today. And I hope you identify yourself being in one of the phases with maybe, the goal of getting to a different place. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give some real examples of agents that we actually work with and some different ways of producing results. Because as an organization, I'm not convinced that we all have to be doing what everybody else does, but I am convinced that if we could find our passion, our excitement, and the way that we want to build this great business, we can have a lot more fun doing it and be way more productive. And at the end, by the way, I wrote a book about 10 years ago called Deliver the Unexpected, and it is turning into an ebook in about 3 weeks, I think August 17th, if I'm not mistaken. And if you want to get that book, you can text the number and we're going to send that to you for free as well once it's actually released. So we'll get to that sort of at the end. So anyway, I want to start with this. If you think about it, why did you get into real estate? I don't want you to type this in unless you want to. I'm just sort of getting you to think about it. But why did you get into real estate in the first place? Now, when I ask this question and when we survey most of the people, there's 2 primary reasons they get into real estate. And the first is they like to have financial freedom. In other words, what they want to do is they want to make enough money so that they can fund the life that they want to live. That's generally one of the reasons, because let's face it, if we're in the real estate industry, technically we're sort of self-employed, right? We're only getting, paid if we go out there and produce a result in the world. And of course, as you know, there's risk in that. And if we're going to take risk, then chances are we should be compensated more. That's why many people will just take a job, right? And they'll work their 35, 30, or 40 hours a week, and they get a paycheck, say, every Thursday or every other Thursday. And generally speaking, that paycheck, it's probably not going to be as large as somebody that's self-employed and really put the time in. And the reason for that is because the self-employed person is taking a risk. So I look at it and say, if I'm going to take a risk, then I think I should be very well compensated for that. And then the second reason is most people want time. So what I find in real estate is I find the first thing they want is, okay, yeah, I want to make a really good living. I'm not saying, maybe they want to make $1 million a year. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But they just want to make a really good living that they can sustain the lifestyle that they want to sustain. And then the second thing, if I'm going to make that type of money, then what I want is I want to have the time off where I can really enjoy sort of the rest of my life. And the interesting story, about 3 years ago, I was actually in Calgary, Alberta, and I was speaking at a conference, and the owner of the conference, we had dinner that night. And anyway, he came up to me, or I should say at dinner, we're sitting chatting, and he said, something that I've recently done? I said, what's that? He goes, I actually take a week off every single month now. Now, this was a large organization. And I said, a week off every month? That's amazing. That's 12 weeks a year. I said, what do you do 12 weeks a year? He goes, well, depending on the time of year. He goes, I've flown all the way to Australia, and I've, ridden my BMW bike, right? Had it shipped over. And he said, I've gone on great golf holidays. I've gone on sailing holidays. He said, I spent time with my kids. He goes, it's amazing. So I'm sitting there and I said to him, I said, boy, that's a really good idea. But in my mind at the time, you know what I was thinking? I was thinking I couldn't do that. I couldn't get a month or a week, a month off. Are you kidding me? Right? We're too busy. And I think we all think like that a little bit. So anyway, what I did was I then set a goal for myself. And I texted him later on to tell him I was going to do it. And I said, you want to know something? I'm going to do the same. And I said, what am I going to do just for a little accountability? Because we became fairly good friends, over the last number of years. And I said, I'm going to text you and tell you what I'm doing for the week I'm taking off this month. So a number of years ago, I started taking off 1 week a month. And I've done it every month for almost, like, we're getting close to 4 years, believe it or not, in terms of how it was about 3.5 years ago when this all happened. And it's completely changed my life. But I didn't take that time off thinking that my business was going to be smaller. I took that time off with the intention of continuing to grow my business by 10 to 15% every year. So, when our company was young, we grew more than that. But now I'm looking at it and say, if I can grow by 10 to 15% a year, I consider that pretty good. I'm very happy. So what it was with the mindset with me, and my mindset was that at one time I didn't think I could take the time. But when I met, his name was Peter, when I met Peter and we had that dinner that night, and as I said, we've known each other for a long period of time, and he told me what he was doing, I realized that the roadblock was me. See, the roadblock was my own mindset. I had this limiting belief that it wasn't possible. So what I find is a lot of people get into real estate when they first get in, they're all excited, they want to make more money, they want more time off. And what ends up happening, sometimes they sort of look like this. I don't know if you can relate or not, but this is what they sort of look like. They're going, I am just tired, man. You know what I mean? I'm grinding it out every day, trying to get it going. And of course, sometimes we're afraid to take the time off. We think we're going to get behind, right? We think we're going to lose it. We think our clients are going to deal with somebody else. But again, I think if we plan it properly, it is possible to have an incredibly well-balanced life. And, maybe with the goal of taking a week off a month. I don't know that. So it's interesting, but there was a gentleman said to me one day, and most of my learning has come from what other people have said to me that were more experienced and chances are older than me at the time. And one guy said to me one day, he said, Rich, he said, what I've discovered about people is people tend to have one of two objectives. And I said, really? I said, what are they? He goes, well, one is survival. He said, a lot of people, what they do is they go out into the world and they're trying to survive. And he said, what survival means to me is survival means that you're trying to make your mortgage payments, you're trying to maybe make your car payments, maybe trying to get on, 1 or 2 or 3 weeks holidays per year. But what we're doing is we're just getting by. And what he said to me was, he said, what's interesting is they all figure that out. And he said, then you got a second group of people, which tends to be a very small percentage of people. He said, the second group of people, what they're trying to do is they're not trying to survive, they're trying to succeed and flourish. They're trying to succeed and flourish. They're not playing the survival game. They're not worried about making just enough money so that they can, maintain their lifestyle. No, they're going to take it to a whole new level. They want to take it to even a bigger level than that. So when he said that, I thought to myself, that's true. I see that as well. A lot of people, in real estate especially, you've heard about the roller coaster of real estate. They go out into the world, and when they need money, they rock and roll. They can make it happen. But then once they have enough to get by for the next month or two, what do? They kick back and chill, right? And then all of a sudden they kick back and chill, and they wake up one day and there's more month than there is money. And then what do? Back to work they go again, rock and roll. And they have this life of slumps, right? And a roll and a slump and a roll and a slump and a roll and a slump and a roll. And they're either loving the business because they're doing really well, or they're hating it because they don't have enough money. I love it, I hate it, I love it, I hate it, I love it, I hate it, I love it, I hate it. To some degree, it's almost like sometimes we're bipolar when it comes to our mood in real estate. And then we wonder why when we go home, we're having a little bit of trouble, and why the divorce rate is so high. And you get it, right? Because people are going, boy, I don't know who's coming home tonight. You know what I mean? If he got that listing, he's going to be in a really good mood. You know, if that buyer bought, you know, she's going to be in a really good mood. But boy, if they didn't get the listing, oh my God, another one, you know. And I think you all can relate to what I'm saying. And it's difficult. I get it, right? It's a really difficult thing. But I think sometimes we got to ask ourselves, are we playing the survival game? Because I think sometimes we do without even knowing it, or are we trying to succeed and flourish? And here's what's really interesting. You won't recognize $1 million idea unless you have $1 million goal. Now, I'm not talking that we need to have $1 million goal. Your goal is your goal is your goal is your goal, right? And even though I'm in Canada, you see, I put up, you know, the US dollars there for you. See that? But anyway, but you want to have $1 million goal. And think about when Peter said to me, I'm taking a week off. And it's just one example that stood out in my life, is all of a sudden, I thought to myself, well, why can't I do that and increase my business at the same time? Because see, unless you have $1 million idea, you're not going to find the $1 million or $1 million goal. You're not going to find the $1 million idea. It's just not going to happen. And the crazy thing is, if you think about it, all the ideas are already out there. Like what you want to do in real estate, I bet it is being done or has already been done. So the ideas are already out there, but unless we have the goal, then we're not going to find the idea, because we're looking for ideas to survive rather than succeed and flourish. Now, I have a number of coaches in my life, and one coach, there's a company called the Strategic Coach, and they coach entrepreneurs. And Dan Sullivan owns this company. And he said one day, I was sitting in his class. He does these small classes of 50 people. We meet every quarter for 2 days. And, you know, entrepreneurs from every type of business you can imagine. And he said something one day. He said, your eyes will only see and your ears will only hear what your brain is looking for. And when he said that, I'm sitting there and I go, that's just like the $1 million idea, isn't it? So in other words, if we're trying to get by, guess what our eyes will see and our ears will hear? Ideas to help us get by. But let's say this, let's say we decide to completely change it and we said, forget this getting by stuff. You know what I mean? I'm going to succeed and flourish. I'm going to take my business. I'm going to take my life. I'm going to take my relationships, right? I'm going to take my physical being. I'm going to take it to the next level and get really clear on what it is you want to produce. Well, then if you woke up every day and if you reminded yourself, and I'm sure you've all heard this before, but sometimes it's more important to be reminded than it is to be taught something new. But if you woke up in the morning and let's say you reminded yourself every day of, say, your top 3 breakthrough goals, whatever they are. Might be, I want to make X number of dollars and I want to do that work in X number of hours per week. And you can pick another one. Then what will happen is if that is in the foremost of your mind on a regular basis, then guess what ideas you're going to start to find? Just like when I wanted the week off a month, I started to find ideas because I was always busy. I didn't think I could take a week off. Then all of a sudden, well, why can't I? Maybe I have the limiting belief and maybe I'm looking for the wrong ideas, and completely changed my lifestyle. Completely changed my lifestyle. So understand that if you're trying to survive, guess what your eyes are going to see? Guess what your ears are going to hear? They're going to hear the ideas to help you survive, to help you make a mortgage payment, right? To help you get by. But if you say, I want to succeed and flourish, and it doesn't mean you got to work harder. That's the whole thing. This isn't about putting in more hours. This isn't about grinding harder than you've ever had to grind before. No, it's about thinking differently. It's about getting clear on exactly what it is you want. So let me take you through the 4 phases. And I think the 4 phases, you're going to recognize yourself in one, and then maybe you'll identify where you want to go into maybe another phase. And all of a sudden now, right, we're allowing our maybe eyes to see and our ears to hear what it is that we actually would like to produce in our life. So here's the first phase I find in real estate. Now, this is a funny phase. This is a real fun phase, the honeymoon. This is when they're generally brand new. Right? This is when agents get into the business. They've just got their license. They're just getting started, probably going through the training programs with their broker, you know, maybe with John L. Scott. And they're in there and they're all excited about the opportunities ahead. Now, they have no skills, generally speaking. They probably need some work on mindset, possibly, but they have a lot of energy. And here's some of the characteristics. They have lots of energy. they're excited, they're hopeful, they don't mind putting in the hours, and they just love the buzz of the business. Like they will work 80 hours a week and they're having the time of their lives, right? Which is great. I was there. I remember I was 24 years old. It was amazing. But then what happens after we do this for a while, and let's say that we remain fairly unskilled, and all of a sudden we want to do more. How do we do that? We tend to work harder, and we get on what we call the treadmill. And what happens is, for us to produce better results, we just keep running a little faster, a little faster, a little faster, a little faster. And I can't tell you the amount of times that somebody has said to me, next year is the year. And I go, what do you mean it's the year? They go, well, last year I made $100,000 and next year I'm going to make 175. I go, okay, great. I said, so what are you going to do different? What do they say much of the time? I'm going to work harder. Well, I'm going to work harder. That's what they say. I'm going to work harder. And I go, that is the worst plan in the world, because when you come out of the gate in January, generally speaking, you have the energy and excitement of the new goal to work harder for about 3 weeks. And then you get about 3 weeks in, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but I remember doing this myself. I get about 3 weeks in and I start to think to myself, geez, I'm sort of tired. There's got to be more to life than just work, you know? And, other people don't seem to be working as much as me. And we start to justify reasons to go back to the old behavior. We go right back to the old behavior. And then at the end of the year, where do we end up? Within 10% of where we were the year before, depending on the economy, of course, but nothing dramatically changes. Well, why thing changes? Because your success is going to be dependent on how fast you can run, right? And most people, they can't run fast for a long time. And I think you would all agree with this, is at least all the great people we've had the good fortune to work with, and the hundreds of thousands of people that have gone through our multi-day events. I look at it and say that, real estate is a marathon. It is not a sprint. It is a marathon, right? We're not in this for a short period of time. I hope we're getting in this for a long period of time, with the commitment to go out and help as many people as we can possibly help, and do a great job for people and be well compensated for it, so that we can enjoy the life that we want to live. And here's some of the characteristics I see in the treadmill. Generally, they have weak sales skills. They live with a lot of fear and uncertainty. They live in what actually I call silent desperation. They want another sale, they want another commission, they want another deal, but they have no idea how and when it's going to come, right? Because they have no systems in place. They tend to be very reactive. They have cash flow challenges on a regular basis. Their people are, their business is people dependent. It's not system dependent. And generally they work way too much until they get tired, make some money, and then they kick back for a little while. And then we move into the third, and the third is called the crossroads. Now, when I'm speaking in front of a group of people, I always ask them, after I show them the characteristics of the crossroads, how many people are there or have been there? And at almost always about 20% of the audience hands goes up. So that doesn't mean they're there now. It means they were there at some point, right? Or they are there now. And here's what the crossroads is. The crossroads is when you're thinking about maybe doing something else. All this bloody real estate business, you know what I mean? Like all the buyers are all a bunch of liars, and everybody's cutting commission out there. And, it's so hard. There's no loyalty in this business anymore. And we start to make up all these crazy stories in our head about one of the greatest industries I believe there is. Everybody needs a place to live. It's such a beautiful, beautiful industry for those that are committed to it. But these people feel trapped and they're tired. They've lost interest. Things start to fall between the cracks. They start to make some mistakes. Their customer service goes down. They don't get a lot of repeat business anymore. They don't get a lot of referral business because they're not in the game. They're not 100% committed to doing an unbelievable job and helping people buy and sell real estate. But then the fourth, and this is where I love to see people get. This is where you become a business owner. You act like a business owner and you think like a business owner. And when you get here, what starts to happen, you're going to have renewed excitement about what it is you do. You're going to be fulfilled. You've developed your skills. You're going to have continuous growth, again, based on what's going on in the economy. You know how to produce a predictable result. In other words, you know that if you do A, B, C, D, you're going to get X. So you can almost predict in advance the growth of your business. And I want to show you some people that have done this, because when people live in silent desperation, it's a very difficult business. But if we can somehow create systems in our business where we can now predict results and have consistency in our results, then the business becomes an awful lot more fun. So I would say right now that everybody watching, you probably sit in one of these four. Again, if somebody's got a larger team, they might go on to 5 and 6, which I'm not going to get into today. But look at where you are. What do you feel right now is going on? Where are you sitting right now? But more importantly, where do you want to go? Because remember, we're not going to recognize the $1 million idea unless we have the $1 million goal. So that's the whole purpose of this, is just to have a look at where you are. Now, let me take you, I'm going to show you some people that we've been working with. Some of these people have been for many, many years, and some changes they've made. And the secret is, I think, is all of us have the opportunity to choose our game in this business. You know, we can choose to be on a treadmill. We can choose to be in crossroads. We can choose to be thinking like a business person. You know, we can choose to build a business through geographical farming. We can choose to build a business through more repeat and referral business. You know, we can choose to take weekends off. We can choose to work weekends. You know, we can choose to take a week off a month. We can choose to do anything we want. And as Michael Gerber said in his book, The E-Myth, I'm sure many of you read the book, one of my favorite books in entrepreneurship. He said, your business should be a vehicle to enrich your life, not one that drains the life out of you. Because if our business is draining the life out of us, and chances are we're not going to last for a long period of time. So this lady, she's a really, really cool person. She used to be an accountant. Her name is Daria Karp. And so there's a gentleman by the name of Sean McCann who has been a coaching client with us for over 10 years. I'm going to say 12 to 14 years. Daria Karp started selling real estate as Sean's assistant. And then she moved to Sean's buyer's agent. And then Sean said, well, you're doing so well, you should probably go out on your own, which she did. Now, of course, Sean was being coached by us, so she was familiar with our organization, and she started right from when she started on her own, she started in our coaching program. Now, as a company, we have developed something called the Lifetime Referral System. And basically what it is, it's where you build a database of supporters, of advocates, which I'll talk more about in just a moment. And then what we do is we track the results. So the example of that, Daria in 2017, and just stay with me on this because this is a little bit of math, she had 140 people in her database. So this is in her CRM, 140 people. Of the 140 people, she did 26 transactions. Now, she did a little bit more business than that, not a lot. She did a couple from open houses and other things. This is 26 was just from her database. It was either repeat or it was referral business. Well, that would tell me that she got what we call an 18% return or penetration rate, right? So in other words, you know, if 26 is 18% of 140. So we know that she's getting an 18% return. But then look what happened in year number 2, because again, my theory is, and this is just if it interests you, but a business is meant to grow. I don't think a business should stay stagnant. I think if you try to stay stagnant, I think you might even start to back up a little bit. So in 2018, she grew her database by 38 people. Now, there's not a person on this call that couldn't grow their database by 38 people. That's like, what, one person roughly every week and a half, right? So she added one person every week and a half to her database, and she did 37 transactions. But look what happened to her return. It went up. It went to 21%, because 37 is 21% of 178. So her business grew, went from 26 to 37 transactions. But then, and again, because it's a concentrated effort on growing her database, that's one of our teachings, is she got to 208 people the next year, last year, which means she grew it by 30 people. So again, roughly a person every week and a half. She did 50 transactions. Look at her return, went to 24%. Now, why is the return going up? The return is going up because we teach something called the Lifetime Referral System, which is a communication system with people in your database where you communicate with them about 33 times a year. Okay, we can talk about newsletters, we can talk about market updates, we talk about client appreciation parties, and I can go on and on about the things that we teach. But it's not rocket science. It's just a system, right? We just laid out a system. And we have found that in the very first year, if you follow our system, you'll get somewhere around a 15% return. Dare you get 18%. In the second year, your return should get up somewhere from 18 to 20 is what we normally see, but dare you got hers to 21. And then what we know is once you get into third year of the system, your return should always be in excess of 22% a year. So think about this. If you know you're going to get a 22% return, and if you have 100 people in your database, that's 22 deals every single year. If you grow your database by, say, 50 people a year at a 22% return, you're adding over 10 deals to your business every single year. So that's this system, okay? And she did a few more deals, but, you know, from an open house or whatever. But Daria Clark is an introvert. She's a very caring human being. She's got a heart, huge heart. And she's not the type of person that's ever going to do a geographical farming. She's not the type of person that's, you know, ever going to be doing cold calling, or she's not into social media and all those sort of things. But what she did is she picked a system, because there's 14 ways to generate leads in real estate. There's a few more, but let's just say 14 that are prominent that you would all know about. She picked this one because we create systems for them all, right? So she picked this one. So here's what she knows. She knows in 2019, her database is going to get bigger. And if her database is getting bigger, what's happening to her transactions? They're going up. Everybody with me here? So her business has become consistent, it's become predictable, and it's become repeatable. And that's a system. Remember I said on the treadmill, people have a people-dependent business, not a system-dependent business. So just to show you some other numbers, I'm going to show you Jeremy Amiot, because he's got some numbers as well. But here's Jeremy. And if you look at his numbers, so the last 4 years, here's what they are. Now, here's what's interesting about Jeremy's is you notice the return on investment went down. And I wanted to show you this just because this is very relevant. Jeremy's been probably coaching with us for, I don't know, 15 or 16 years, a long time. And these are only deals from his database. Jeremy does well over 100 deals a year. This is just from his database. But what happened was Jeremy was not growing his database. So he's getting a 41% return with 150 people. So once we said, you got to start growing your database, buddy. You're already hanging out with everybody that already loves you. You're not building any more relationships, right? And once he got that, he started to grow his database. So his return went down, but his database went up. Look what happened to his number of transactions. Do you see? So just to give you an idea how this whole system works, right? So if I just back up here, I want to show you something. This is called SLA. And the concept here is that there's 3 levels of relationships. There's satisfying a client, there's having a loyal client, and there's creating advocacy. Now, I think all of us in the real estate industry, we have no problem satisfying clients. But the thing about a satisfied client, that doesn't mean they're going to do business with you again. They might, but it doesn't mean they will for sure. They could walk into an open house tomorrow, they could, you know, see an online, you know, house. Next thing they're texting or emailing a different agent. But the second is loyalty. Now, loyalty is the second depth of a relationship, but loyalty doesn't mean they'll refer people to you. It means they'll do business with you again. Because we all need to understand, for somebody to refer business to you, they're taking a chance. They're putting themselves at risk. So the lifetime referral system, the system is all created in building what we call advocacy. Now, advocacy is one of the coolest things in the world. So as a company, over 50% of our new coaching members come from referrals. And that's because we've got so many advocates, right? We created this incredible community. Our members love to hang out together. Yesterday, there was 11 of them went to play golf together, and they invited me along, which was really nice, right? So there ended up being 12 of us. You know, they're always doing stuff together. So what happens is we've created these advocates, and now because we've created these advocates by delivering what we call the unexpected, is all of a sudden they're helping us. They're helping me. They're helping the company build our business. So advocacy is where you want to get to in a relationship. Now, advocacy isn't easy. It requires a lot of work, It requires delivering the unexpected. It requires going the extra mile. It requires really caring about people. It requires wanting people to be extraordinarily happy about their purchase, and even afterwards. It's not just about pre-sale service, it's also about post-sale service. What do you do after you've been paid? Because think about this, it's what we do after we have done what we're expected to do that will ultimately produce our results. But also look at this for a minute. So what is the value of one advocate in your database? So let's say that you had 100 advocates in your database, in your CRM, whatever it is you use. And let's say you're getting a 20% return. That means you're doing 20 ends. If you're doing 20 ends and your average commission is $10,000, obviously right across the country, they're always different, but that means you're making $200,000 in GCI from 100 people. If you divide that by your 100 advocates, that means each person that is in your database is worth $2,000. $2,000. Now, that doesn't mean that all of them did business with you. It just means when we average it out, each person's worth $2,000. Well, if each person's worth $2,000, would it be worthwhile to take 5% of that and spend it on them? Maybe 7% and spend it on them? Because that's still a hell of a return on investment. I think you would all agree. So when I present this in our live events, I think people see this is what business people do. Business people figure out, what is the value of somebody in my database? And if each person in my database is worth $2,000, $1,500, $1,000, then I need to reinvest in those people on a regular basis. Okay, so moving forward, I want to show you a couple other ideas. This is Ralph Ciancio. Ralph is, let's call him an extrovert. So you can see I've had both Jeremy and Daria are extreme introverts, okay? Jeremy, I don't know if he's ever done an open house. I shouldn't say that because I don't know for sure, but he's not that personality, right? He's not that type of guy. He just wants to service people. He's not the type of guy that likes to have client appreciation events because he's not outgoing. It's just not his personality. But this guy right here, Ralph, this is one of the most outgoing people you'll ever meet in your life. Ralph loves people. He loves parties. He loves events. He loves selling real estate because he said, I don't actually sell real estate. He said, I help people find and sell their dream homes. That's what I do. He goes, that's what it's all about. It's not about selling homes. It's about helping people. He goes, I don't set a goal to sell 100 homes a year. I set a goal to help 100 people. So it's a slight intention shift, isn't it, in his thinking. And by the way, he does do about 140, 150 transactions a year. He's up around $2 million in GCI. But here's why I wanted to use Ralph as an example. Again, just for an idea. I don't know what idea is going to trigger you. When we first started working with Ralph, he said he'd love to do open houses. And I know some people are doing them, some people aren't. I get the COVID-19 thing. We'll just forget about that. But he said, I love doing open houses. So we said, well, if you love doing open houses, do you know how many open houses you have to do to get a deal? And he goes, well, what are you talking about? We said, well, what you measure gets improved. So if we start to measure your results, maybe we can figure out a way to produce better results in a shorter period of time. So we started tracking it, and we found that every 5 open houses that Ralph was doing, he was getting 1 deal. Now, he does other lead gen too. This is just open houses again. So we started looking at his open houses, and we said, well, how are you doing your open houses? Well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. He said, well, and I shouldn't say we, but his coach said, well, imagine if maybe what you started to do is do a VIP open house an hour before the public open house. You invite 50 of the neighbors over to see the house beforehand so they can come and see it, because sometimes those people are thinking of what? Thinking of selling. And then, how are you marketing this home? Like, are you doing a Facebook Live? Are you sending it out to your database? Well, he said, I'm not doing much other than putting up signs. We said, well, let's look at your marketing. So we started to look at everything he was doing to do an open house. And then we got him down to 3.4, okay? Open houses per deal. And then we kept working on the system, and then we created a new sign-in sheet. And then he started having draws. So everybody that went to the open house, if you fill out the sign-in sheet, he would have a draw for dinner for 2 and 2 bottles of wine. So there's going to be 3 people that won something at the open house. Then he started putting on the grill in the backyard in the nice weather, and he'd have burgers and hot dogs, he had the whole deal. Then he had wine and cheese and coffee, and he turned it into an event. It wasn't an open house anymore. This thing became a party. And guess what he loves? He loves parties. So Ralph, he's not doing them right now, open houses, because I was talking to him yesterday because of COVID, but he got down to 2.4 open houses. And then what did he do? He said, I'm going to do 2 open houses a day. So he started doing 2 open houses on Saturday and 2 open houses on Sunday. Now he had help because he's an assistant, and he's got a buyer's agent, all that sort of thing. So now he's doing 4 open houses every weekend. So now if he's doing 4 open houses every weekend and he's doing 1 deal per 2.4 open houses, you can see what's happening, can't you? So we tracked his results, but these open houses became an extreme event. It was how many days out do we start marketing it? Where do we market it? When people come through, what questions do we ask them? How do we get the real information? What do we have there for them? How do we get the neighbors to come over? Y'all with me here? So this is a system that we created. So Ralph is producing an extraordinary result where now he's doing 4 open houses. That's like almost 3 deals, right? If you follow the system. You can't do 4 open houses every weekend, but many weekends he started doing 4 open houses. He just created a whole system around it. What a beautiful thing, because he's got lots of listings. So again, extrovert, not trying to work more than everybody else, but he's got a system that actually produces a result. And this is Ralph said this. He was speaking at one of my events. I've had Ralph speak a couple of times at my events, and I love this. He said, almost 100% of my marketing budget is spent on creating exceptional client experiences. This is my marketing strategy. This is my marketing strategy. So his whole theory, actually the name of his team, you could even Google it if you want to see it, it's called Helping You Move Team. So the team he created is called Helping You Move Team, right? Because his whole theory is, I'm going to help people move. Yeah, he's got a moving truck, you know, all that sort of stuff, but it's all client experience, right? But again, that's his strategy. There's many other ones as well, but this one works. And I've always loved this thought. I can't remember where I read this, but it said, the way you do anything is the way people think you do everything. So imagine this. Imagine that one of the neighbors walks into your open house, or even a showing, it doesn't matter. And they show up and they see that you literally got red carpet, which Ralph does. He rolls out the red carpet down the stairs, or, you know, he's got red carpet when people show up, right? He's actually got a piece of red carpet. And you walk in and you get this smiling guy. He's wearing a name tag and everything, right? When you show up, because I've walked through a couple of his open houses because he's a local dude here. And then all of a sudden you walk in and, you know, he hands you, you know, a brochure about the house, explains it to you. And then he says, by the way, we got some wine and cheese and coffee and, you know, whatever it is. In the backyard, we've got, you know, burgers on the grill and hot dogs on the grill and all that sort of thing. But please feel free to go through. And what he's also done, get this, everybody, which I thought was brilliant. On the dining room table, if it's possible, depending on the house, he has 4 iPads set up where kids can sit down and watch movies while their parents are going through the house. Like, that's brilliant, right? You know, I think that little idea is brilliant. So all of a sudden now, think about that. The kids are sitting there. The parents are no longer in a rush. They feel relaxed. The kids don't want to leave. So you might as well have a glass of wine or a coffee, which means Ralph and his team get talking to him. You can see I'm going with this, right? And those people leave, and they're neighbors, and they were thinking of selling. The way you do anything is the way people think you do what? Everything. Now imagine me sitting in an open house. You walk in and I'm sitting on the couch, you know, with whatever sport they're playing these days. They're not playing very many, but anyway, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm watching golf. I say, hey, nice to meet you. What's your name? My name's Richard Robbins. Well, listen, go ahead and take a look. I'm sitting here if you got any questions. And those people are actually going through the house, not because they want to buy it, but they're thinking of selling and they want to see the prices listed for it. What's the chance of me getting that listing? Probably slim to none, right? So that's the difference, okay, and what we're talking about here. So I'm going to give you one more example. Tom's story. Young dude. He actually is older than he looks. I promise you that. But yeah, he looks young. But anyway, look at this production. He started in real estate when he was 22 years old. Okay. Now, fortunately, he started with us right away. And I don't say fortunately for him. I say fortunately for us because he's a really cool guy. This guy's brilliant. But look at his production levels. And it was interesting. I'm going to show you a couple things he did. Now, I'm hoping these videos are going to play as good for you on your side as they do on my side. If they don't, James, give me a thumbs down and I'll stop it, okay? But I'm hoping they're going to play because I love these videos.
No volume.
Okay, you got no volume there?
Right, guys? Yeah, no volume.
No? Okay, good. So I'm going to skip through the videos. I was hoping they would play. If you like, James,
I'd
we
love it.
could yeah, we'll
Yeah.
send these to you,
Yeah,
and then you
we'd
can
love
send
that.
them out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because what these are is I sort of call them consumer awareness videos. And what we did with Tom is because he's young, he's into the internet, he's into social media, you know, that whole deal. And he's really good in video. That he started creating these consumer awareness videos, and each one is just a video that would be a question that a lot of buyers or sellers might ask. You saw his production. And these are all under 60 seconds, and he put them all on Instagram because you got to be under 60 seconds to be on Instagram. And what he has done in that whole social media space with video is mind-blowing. And by the way, all the people watching, just Google Tom's story, right? You can look at all the stuff he's done. But what I will do is I will get these videos to you because I got a couple of them here. That was another one too called Becoming an Educated Buyer. He's in Toronto, the Toronto market, 60 seconds or left. But it's just, it's really cool content. So anyway, okay, I'm going to start to close this out a little bit. But I just wanted to sort of get the whole idea, becoming a business person, right? How do we bring more value? How do you build a business in a way that really suits you and your personality? But I remember that Joe Polish said this. I don't hear Joe Polish, but Joe Polish, he's got something called the Genius Network. He's down in Phoenix, Arizona, and he's another entrepreneurial group that I belong to, and he's a brilliant marketer. And he said at one time, he said, attention is the new currency. And when he said that, he explained to us, he goes, if you think about the world we live in, that everybody's trying to get everybody's attention today, right? He said, you know, we're all sitting around, we got our phones, we got Facebook, we got email, we got text, we got, you know, Instagram, it goes on, and everybody's trying to get your attention. So he said, attention is the new currency. So the most successful people are going to be the people that can get other people's attention. And I remember he said, I go, he's right. So he goes, you're boring, you're not getting anybody's attention. So Tom Story's videos will get people's attention, right? Ralph Ciancio's open houses will get people's attention. Okay, Darian Jeremy's lifetime referral system, because of the value there, will get people's attention. But then I think we're at a whole new place now. And I think experience is the new currency. Like the actual experience that you create when you're working with buyers and sellers, because that's what creates advocacy. So the new competitive battleground in business is the client experience. Because let's think about it. We all know we got companies out there that are, you know, they've got agents that are actually employees. They're charging much less commission. We've got iBuyers, and we can go on and on and on about the changes being made in real estate. Well, then what separates you? The client experience. More than anything like ever before. 89% of businesses expect to compete on client experience. So we can see what's going on. So this is the last story I'm going to tell you, and then I'll show you how you can get the book or the white paper. So many years ago, I shouldn't say a number of years, I bet you 10 or 12 years ago, I was speaking at the National Association of Realtors Conference. It was in San Francisco. And anyway, for whatever reason, we had not booked me a hotel room, just slipped, right? And generally back then I was staying at Marriott's. Now I usually stay at, well, Marriott owns pretty well everything, but I sort of went to the Sheratons and the Westons, but Marriott owns them all anyway, so it doesn't matter. But we phoned and we couldn't get a room because there's thousands of agents there, plus some other conventions going on, I'm sure. So we literally couldn't get a room. So my assistant found a room at a place called the Argent Hotel. Now, the Argent Hotel is no longer there because it got bought by another company, but I had never stayed at an Argent Hotel in my life. So anyway, I check in. I got in late in the afternoon the day before I'm speaking. My speaking time was 1 o'clock the next day. And I'd been on the road for over a week. And I remember I was really tired and I just wanted to get home. You know, you just reach the end of your trip. I just want to get home. So anyway, I do my 1 o'clock talk. I had a couple meetings set up and I was flying out early the next morning. So I was there for 2 nights. So anyway, I wake up in the morning, pack up my roller bag, pack up my briefcase, go down the elevator, get off the elevator, start heading to the front desk. This was still back when we all went to the front desk to check out. But anyway, start heading to the front desk. There's two people standing in front of me. Now, all of a sudden, I hear somebody say to me, they said, "Sir, it looks like you're leaving us today. Are you going to need a cab?" And I go, "Wow." So I turn around and there's a bellboy standing there. And I said, "Well, I actually am." He said, "Well, I'll get you a cab right away. Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I'm going to the airport." He said, "Not a problem, sir. I'll look after that for you." He totally disappears, right? I don't think any more about it. So now, all of a sudden, I'm the next to go to the counter. And he shows up again and he said, "Sir," he said, "I got the cab out front waiting for you. The trunk is open. Would you like me to take your suitcase and throw it in the trunk?" I go, "That'd be great." So I pull off my briefcase and away he goes with my suitcase. And I do remember thinking for a minute, I hope he really works here. You know what I mean? But anyway, so off he goes. And then I check out and I'm walking towards the front desk. And he catches up with me again. And he said, "Sir," he said, "you're about 45, maybe an hour to the airport because you're going to catch a little bit of traffic." He said, "Would you like a newspaper to read? I have the San Francisco Chronicle and I have the USA Today." I'm going, "How good is this?" I said, "Yeah, I'll take the USA Today." So he gives me the USA Today. And then he says this. He said, "Sir, would you like me to have the cab driver stop at the Starbucks just on the next block to get you a coffee so you can have a coffee while reading your newspaper on the way to the airport?" Now, in that moment, all I'm thinking to myself is, do you have any idea how big your tip is getting, son? Right? And now here's what was interesting about that story. And as I said, it was probably 10, 12, maybe 13 years ago, but it's still a story I tell a lot. And the reason it is because I want to ask you all a question. If anybody in any service industry had that mindset, would they succeed? Anybody in any service industry, right? Because I got thinking about it, and what happened is I walked by, okay, where the porters were standing. There was 3 of them standing there when I walked by my roller bag, but only one came up and asked if I wanted a cab. So think about his attitude. He's probably sitting there, and here's what he's thinking. Hey, somebody just got off the elevator. That guy looks like a regular traveler. I bet she's got money in his pocket, and somehow, some way, I'd like to get some of his money. He's thinking, but guess what? If he's a seasoned traveler, I got to do more, right, than he's used to if I want to get a bigger tip. So he's getting creative. And that attitude will work in any service industry because all he was thinking about is how can I create a great client experience and how can I deliver the unexpected? And if I do that, some people are going to reward me very, very well. Some people are going to reward me normally. And as usual, some people won't reward me at all, which was me. Just kidding. I tipped them very well. But see, that attitude changes everything. So the whole thought process is it's not about what it is we can get. It's about what it is we can give. And when I wrote the book called Deliver the Unexpected, DTU, that's what it was all about. And I'm going to skip this actually because we're sort of running out of time. But one of the myths in the book, I said abundance is defined by what it is we have. And I actually think abundance is defined by what it is we give. Like that's what abundance is. Whatever I want more in life of, I need to be willing to give something for it, right? In other words, if I want more love from my wife, then I need to give her more love. If you want to have more friends, be a better friend. If I want more energy, then I need to give my body something different, don't I? Probably exercise and nutrition. See, everything that we receive is going to come from some form of giving. And most people are thinking about getting, unfortunately, and not thinking about giving. And I think giving changes everything. So anyway, if you're interested in getting a copy of the book, which won't come out until the 17th, all you have to do is text success at that number right there. Okay, 206-339-9323. But what you'll receive right away is I know whether it's across Canada, if it's across the US, we're seeing multiple offers everywhere right now. We have low inventory. Most markets are killing it, right? So we created a white paper, which we just released last week. It's called The 5 Ways to Win Multiple Offer Situations. So if you text success to that number right there, you will receive the white paper right away. And then when the book is released in its e-format, we'll get that to you on the 17th, because it's not out in e-format yet. We're just working on that right now. So saying that, that's all I got, James. I don't know if we got any questions or if you have any questions, but thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Richard, what incredible! You're speaking our language, and I can see Lennox was enjoying all that you were talking about around. And I see that he just came off mute, so I figured he had a question or two. Lennox, what do you got for us?
Well, I was just first of all, I just want to say fabulous presentation. This is just everything we're trying to move forward as a company. I hope every one of our broker associates, our agents, are able to listen to you down the road here. And I know the coaching you're providing is where it really shows up. And I guess that's my question. You're helping coach individuals. And what do you see the growth in the amount of business they get from having a coach versus kind of just knowing these things? And isn't there I take a look at this as observational knowing versus experientially implementing. And is that where the bridge is and what a coach brings in?
Yeah, I think, Lennox, you're right. I think, it's, I've always said that the great secret in life is knowing what to do is doing what we know, right?
Yeah.
And like, there's so many things in my life I know I should do, and I'm not doing them. There's many I'm doing because I do have two big coaches in my life that help me. So I've always said that everybody goes, well, what do you think the benefit of coaching is? The knowledge, the training. And I said, it's probably the accountability. Because if we can figure out what somebody's true big goal are, right? Like, what do you really want to achieve in your life? And then it's a joint effort to find the right ideas, right? What do they think? What do we think? How can we work through that together and create a strategy? And that's implementation. And as we all know, implementation is about accountability. And you just get so much more done, right? And let's face it, you're not always going to get everything done. But if you get 30% more done this week than you would have got done without it, right?
What's the frequency? Better. What's the frequency of the interaction that your coaches have with their with the agent?
So they have one-on-one calls every other week. Plus, they obviously are invited to all of our events. And then we also have what we call impact training calls that happen twice a month, which are an hour long, where we present something for, say, 20 to 25 minutes. And then they go into breakout rooms in smaller groups to discuss the idea, what they liked, what they didn't like, what would they change. And that's also how we create the communities. We have lots of referrals floating around too.
Fabulous.
The big ahas for me, obviously the $1 million goal equals the $1 million idea. That it starts with the goal first. Obviously, you come up with a $1 million idea, but if it's not part of your goal, it's hard to get there. That kind of getting by equals, basically essentially getting by. How you frame it. The big one is that with Ralph, his marketing strategy, really spoke to him. That is how he is wired. And so he was able to kind of create that life that he loves. And the marketing wasn't this, arduous, like painful process just to kind of keep the volume going. You've spoke, to kind of what gets measured, essentially gets done. A lot of times I see that skipped, and yet you have like proof in the pudding here. You've got real examples of how people have added people to their database in a meaningful way, and then seen the results come out of that. It's a company-wide initiative to keep after the database and continue to communicate on an ongoing basis. And we have we kind of monitor this on a daily basis now with the company, and it's been powerful. We've seen incredible results, and you're speaking to that. Probably the biggest aha, though, was the way you do anything is the way people think you do everything.
Everything.
And
Yeah.
I think that's just powerful. And the red carpet example, it might seem cheesy, I guess, to have a red carpet out, and yet you're not going to see a red carpet at any other front of any other house, right? So that's pretty powerful. I love that that as an example. So we'd love to see Tom's videos. 60-second videos doesn't seem like too hard to do.
No.
He's communicating in really concise, clear ways from an expert level. So we'd love to see those. Thank you. I mean, video is everything. So we're very excited to see that. Richard, we really appreciate your time, and I know we just tip the iceberg here. John L. Scott will be engaging with you in the future because you're speaking our language for sure. And I know I speak for everyone on the call here, our office leaders, our independent owners and operators, and every agent and broker, both on Zoom and Facebook Live. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. And James, just it'll probably be Tuesday before we get the videos to you, if that's okay. Because I said it's a holiday Monday, so I want to deliver the unexpected. I don't want to under-promise, or you know what I mean, or over-promise.
Your team's been great to work with, and they've been actually the most prepared on our Facebook Friday kind of coordination. I knew what you were going to be speaking on 3 months ago. Or 2.5 months ago. So that was really appreciated, both Dana and Storm. So I appreciate that. Says a lot about you, actually. So,
I will definitely let them know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and thanks to everyone for joining the call today on John L. Scott Facebook Friday. Next week, we have the president and owner of Trend Graphics, Jean Lee, and her director of sales, Dennis Haley. They'll be joining us to talk all about Trend Graphics and the company that they've created and that we use all the time in John L. Scott on a regular basis, specifically, obviously, for data and trends for our real estate business, but also on the housing updates that Lennox puts out on a monthly basis. So Trend Graphics is a leading provider of highly visual MLS data, trending, and market share. So they have this thing called Facts and Trends, as well as Broker Edge and Broker Edge Plus. I wanted to, I guess, dispel any confusion about Trend Graphics and maybe heighten our broker and agent and owner and office leaders' interest around it, because it's a powerful tool that John L. Scott provides to each and every one of its affiliates and associates. So please join us next week at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to meet up with Jean Lee and Dennis Haley. And on behalf of John L. Scott, Lennox Scott, and all of our agents, brokers, office leaders, and independent owners and operators, thank you so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful week.